Hello and welcome, and thank you for watching. Please hit subscribe if you are not already a subscriber. That way you'll be notified when I make new videos. Also, you can follow me on Facebook at the Universal Life Church of Massachusetts on Facebook. Today I want to talk about Jesus. Did he really exist? There are a lot of people out there claiming that that he did exist, and some people just assume he exists because it's in the Bible. But we have to keep in mind the Bible also has talking snakes and talking donkeys and people who stories of people who gathered up two of every animal on the earth and put them on a boat. So I don't think that's any kind of proof Jesus existed. Now, if you already have a belief that Jesus did exist and you are looking at this video for some kind of validation of that, you'll be disappointed, because there is no proof anywhere that I have ever seen that Jesus existed. That doesn't mean he didn't. I'm just saying there's no proof. I can't prove he didn't exist either, because maybe there was some person in the Middle East around that time named Jesus that lived. But let's put things into context here and look at the situation. If there was writers of Jesus's day, and there was somebody around producing miracles like Jesus is claimed to have done, the writers of her day would write about it. But none of the writers of his day wrote about him. This is a big thing, because they didn't have radio, they didn't have TV, they just had writers. So the writers would have mentioned him somewhere, but it wasn't until almost 2 generations later that the story comes up. And is it just a story? Well, that's what we're going to get into today. The truth. Not the religious beliefs or dogma, but truth. That's all I care about. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Buddhist. I'm not any religion. My religion is love and truth. So I need facts, I need evidence in order for it to resonate as true with me. And I'm going to tell you what I found out when I looked. And I just didn't look recently because I wouldn't want to know. This is a lifetime of looking and learning and education and studying not only Christianity, because I know it very well as many other religions that I've studied. Excuse me, I'm just getting over a cold. So, the thing that we have to understand is there were other people, deities, gods, in the past that had similar stories to Jesus. Some of them were born on December 25th of a virgin, and they were crucified, and they came back from the dead, and all these similarities. And that's a fact. It's true. You can look it up. You can get a book and look up Krishna, for one. Here we have in the Bhagavad Gita the stories of Krishna born without a sexual union from a mental transmission. Christ and Krishna were both called the Son of God. Both were sent from heaven to earth in the form of a man. Both were called the Savior and the second person of the Trinity. Krishna's adoptive human father was a carpenter. I mean, it's the same story. And this preceded Jesus. Why is that? Is it a coincidence? There's no such thing as coincidence. Although people like to use it, the word coincidence is a word people use when they lack reason. They just throw the word coincidence around, and coincidence is a word used for people that lack reason. But if you read the story of Krishna and all the claims, it's almost an identical story. Just the names have been changed. You know, and they both were crucified and both resurrected. And it's not only Krishna. Dionysus, Hercules has some similarities. Zoroaster has some similarities. But the one I want, and you can look up all of these and look at those similarities. Not all of them are as similar to Jesus as Krishna and Horus. Horus, born of a virgin because Osiris, the father, was killed and chopped into pieces, and then, you know, Isis gave birth. Heralded by the star Sirius, the Eastern Star, same one as Jesus, the morning star, and paraded in a manger as a child through the streets at the winter solstice, just like Jesus. That's when they celebrated Horus, the same time of year as Jesus. And there are other similarities. You know, they both have a break in their history between 12 and 30. They were both baptized at 30, started their ministries, and they were both crucified, descended, and then sat in the tomb for 3 days, and then resurrected. Now, this 3 days of death and then resurrected is important to this whole thing, because let's talk about reality here, what the most likely explanation to all this is. Horus was the sun god. That's how we get our word hours for the sun. Because people would say, it's almost like saying, where's Horus? What hour of the day is it? Where is the sun? Where is Horus in the sky? And at the winter solstice on December 20, if you can watch my Christmas, The Hidden Meaning of Christmas, it will explain this in more detail. But a lot of these saviors, Jesus, Krishna, Horus, all of them are hidden messages to try and teach you about the rebirth, awakening, spiritual enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. There's different names in different religions, and people call it different things. We're going to call it rebirth because we're talking about Jesus and Horus and Krishna. The death and the re-resurrection. This is something that enlightenment is connected to. Because when you go through a spiritual enlightenment, it is a destructive process of tearing down all the lies that were told to you in your life and finding the truth in your life. And this does physical chemical changes in your mind. Like I said, watch the Hidden Meaning of Christmas video I have for this in more detail about spiritual enlightenment. But that's what all these religions and deities were trying to give this message in a way that only those who are enlightened or ready to receive and understand this message will see it. And when we didn't have TVs and radios, or even before writing, stories were told to exchange ideas and messages. And in order for a story to last until now, it had to be linked to something that would always be here. And we have the sun and the stars in the sky. They're always going to be there. So that's why these stories and Jesus and Horus and Krishna were linked to the sun. And Christmas at the solstice, because the sun on December 25th sets in the sky. It sets in the sky and stays in the sky less and less each day until it comes to the shortest day of the year on December 21st. And then it sets on the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. The sun dies for 3 days and does not move. It stays in the same spot, and for thousands and thousands of years, this was the time of the year when it was the darkest. This was the dark time of the year. The descension into hell. The night 3 days in the tomb is the sun's 3 days in that spot, the lowest spot of the year, the darkest time. And then on the 25th, at around midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, Virgo, the Virgin constellation, rises on the eastern horizon. The Virgin. And that moves up in the sky, followed by the three kings. Now the Virgo, the Virgin constellation has been called that thousands of years, way before these people. And the three kings are the three stars of Orion's belt. They have been called that for thousands of years. Look it up. Way back 10,000 years ago in China, those stars were called the three kings. And the eastern star, Sirius, is the brightest star that rises in the east. Isis, it is called. The mother star, the dog star. It's called a lot of different things in different religions, but it's there and it's in the east on Christmas morning. And it lines up with the three kings. The three kings, Sirius, together line up and point to the rising sun, the Son of God, Jesus, or Krishna, or Horus, the sun. That's it. That's the story of Jesus in the sky that was meant to be there for you to always have that story, because that story tells us something about ourselves. As above, so below. And the below story is being born of a virgin means taking no thought is what it meant in the past. Taking no thought means to clear your mind of all past thoughts, starting fresh. And when you have this spiritual enlightenment, you will go through a dark night of soul, it is called. And that is 3 days of a very dark, confusional period, which can be scary and confusing, filled with paranoia. And it's when you're trying to put the truth together and put your mind back together, because, like I said, an enlightenment is a destructive process. And it's a natural human process that is important that human beings go through, because when you don't, you're likely for depression and anxiety and a lot of other illnesses, because you're supposed to go through this process just like a caterpillar turns into a butterfly. Humans are supposed to have this process, but religion, which comes from the word regulaire, which means to tie back or bind, is trying to keep you from having this experience. That's the negative part of religion. There's good and bad in everything. There is good in some religions and there is bad, and it's up to you to know the difference. The difference is whether it's selfishness or selflessness. If the church wants your money and they're buying big houses for the pastor, and driving around in fancy cars and taking your money, I can almost guarantee you that's the work of selfishness, which isn't good, it's evil. But people think it is. The work of evil could be happening right at your church down the street, the one you go to. If it has selfishness, if it's built around selfishness. If it's built around good and sharing, it could be a church that is very good, that's teaching you good. That doesn't necessarily mean they know the truth. And they may never teach you what I'm teaching you, because they may not know. You have to have an enlightenment in your life and go through this process to understand it. If you don't, you'll never believe it. No. If you don't go through it yourself, it'll be very difficult for you to believe until you do. And then when you do, because I know there are some out there that I've talked to who have, and they understand. There are many people that have had an enlightenment, and it is what life is all about. And if you don't have this enlightenment in your lifetime, then you've never lived. Yeah, you've lived, but you've never experienced the most amazing thing about life. There are things going on you can't see. You're blind to it. There are energies. There are beings and forces that you don't know are there. And when you find out, it will absolutely blow your mind. And it does. And it takes 3 days in the tomb to let this all sink in, and so you can grasp it, to understand what is going on. And that's what Jesus went through. And when he came back and was resurrected, he did wonderful things. And they all did. And it's the same stories that you hear about Scrooge. He went through an enlightenment. It happened overnight, in the blink of an eye. And it changed his life, and he became a caring individual. The Grinch, another story of someone who went through this spiritual enlightenment, and he saw in the snap of a finger that he was blind to all the things that are going on in this world. He was living lies, and he didn't see the truth. And that's what Christmas, and that's what Jesus, and that's what Krishna, and that's what Buddha, and that's what all of them were trying to teach. But the message in the story gets corrupted over the years by people that don't know the truth, and people end up praying to an invisible man in the sky, and they believe Jesus was an actual person that walked around walking on water. Does that make sense? And I don't want to say Jesus didn't exist, because maybe there was somebody in that time. But there's no proof. None. I've never, some people say the shroud is proof that Jesus existed. And to those people that tell me the shroud is proof when there's no DNA and there's no nothing on it, but yet they're convinced it's proof, I just got to look at them like this and shake my head. Because they're not in touch with reality. There's no logic there. The writers of a day didn't talk about Jesus. I don't know what to say. But I do know that Horus and Krishna's stories are very similar to Jesus. It's almost the same story. So that's no coincidence. They're all talking about this enlightenment, and they attach this story to the sun for you, so it would never be lost, so that the story would be there and people wouldn't convince you that it's something else. There was proof. They put proof in the stars and they linked it. And that's about all. I just wanted to get into this thing because, you know, I've seen a lot of stuff where people say, oh, there were 10 other gods born on December 25th. And that's not true. There wasn't 10 other gods born on December 25th. The calendars have changed all since then. We're talking about the solstice. And there were many gods worshipped on the solstice because of this time of year. It was a time of year when the sun did something that humans do, and that's go through a rebirth. And they wanted this message to you to be saved so it wouldn't be corrupted and stolen and taken away from you, because it's important for you as a human being to know this. And so it's not about Rudolph and Santa Claus and invisible men in the sky. It's about you. And that message has got to stay because it's the truth. And that's all I want to say about that. I hope you have a great day. Hit subscribe. Follow me on Facebook, Universal Life Church of Massachusetts. And until next time.